Yeah, you know who it is. Now on this one, I'm going to be talking about the Silly Killies, alright? You can think whatever you want, but this group of characters, three of the people are based off of people on my rugby team, the Charlotte Royals, and Dana Melanie, this actress that was on the Greenhouse Academy. Very beautiful child of the universe. But let's get into the Silly Killies. So, it's what you think. They are the superhero legion that have no shame in killing criminal kind, but make so much light out of it, no one minds. Alright, let's take a few suns out before midnight. You'll catch them saying it as they are out consorting with mankind in random cities before they save the day. But the kicker is, majority of them work in entertainment and child care. Now ain't this some shit? Heroes out here entertaining the masses and raising the masses, but the second them alter egos come out to play, somebody or some people go get it. They mask all the way out because they do a lot of good with their regular lives. A lot of wholesome good, but every human runs on a stress meter. They like to deplete theirs by helping out humanity again. They do not get tired. Majority of them, Darshé, Dizzy, Zeroskies, Awesomeus, and Newgenesis, grew up on planet Maysho. Rezendé grew up on the artificial moon of Maysho, and Big N Bright is from an entirely different galaxy, but follows the same mindset as them. Well, except for Darshé. Her parents were secret villains, and because of her friendship with everyone, she is always in a catch-22. Now think about it. 5 starstruck kids who have always wanted to be movie stars pretty much became it, but the availability of transforming from child stars to teen stars to adult stars is a hell of a head game. All 5 of them stayed on their path to success. Then Dizzy opted out to become a child psychologist for the children on set, being who he looked up to the most, all the while being in love with him, as well as capitalizing off of her fame in turn would help her parents do what they do and follow in their footsteps, but also practicing heroism at the same fucking time. Girl, you good? She was never good, torn in between so much stuff because of her besties and her parents. Regardless of that, her powers make the battlefield a lovely place whether she's fighting for justice or fighting for what's right. She will gauge every situation and act accordingly to how she sees the world, being in and out of prison majority of her adult life, but gets plucked out of prison every time they realize who she really is. And none of her friends can truly stop her because they grew up with her and know everything. They are in constant catch-22s too, but one thing for sure, when their outrageous uniforms are out in the sky, people will be safe whether they gotta haul ass out of the area or just seeing them pass by. Now let's take a real trip down memory lane. 1. It was never sweet out there for our adventurers. 2. All of their parents took them out and took them to auditions. 3. The original 5 were all casted in a television series called The Costume Conjurer. 4. No matter what was going on, their definition of friendship survived the test of time. 5. As soon as all of their actual magic came in, they began the development of the Silly Killies. 6. The Costume Conjurer transcends into their teenhood and turns into a movie series that furthers their entertainment careers. 7. By the time they were 17, Rezendé joined their group, and they have all taken a life. 8. Privacy becomes harder to achieve because they graduated high school. 9. Privacy becomes harder the second they all go to the same college. 10. Darshé goes to prison for the first time at the age of 22. 11. Big N Bright joins their crew after Zeroskies and him fall head over boots for each other, ages 24. 12. When Darshé met Big N Bright, the Silly Killies were deemed as an untouchable superhero legion. Now, let's talk about them. First of the Silly Killies, Darshé, 5 years old, of Japanese descent, descends from 2 parents that were victims of the wrong side of the justice system, via living on a space colony. They got extremely lucky with how they escaped for good to finish living their lives out on a planet. The trauma caused them to still behave as if they are living on a space colony, instilling in their daughter that you always have to be prepared to fight for yourself. So take all that you can fucking take. She was extremely lucky too. Her 4 next door neighbors, all on the corners of an intersection with her. Her home was next to Dizzy's, and the other 3 boys magically lived on the other corners of the block. They were all luckily the same age and always stuck together because they were called the star homes. So she felt like a star that already looked like a star. That led to their winning tickets and auditions. Last one to audition for the show, and when the talent seeker saw her go hug her friends, that talent seeker liked it. Actually loved it, because all 5 could fit the cast of that show. So they did. All because Darshé was so shy to go last and kill the girl audition. The red carpet rolled out for her after that, and her friendships kept her grounded. Their parents allowed them to spend 50% of their earnings however they saw fit. 100% of that helped them develop their powers before puberty. They influenced a large population of Galaxy 2 to follow in their footsteps with power, whether they had the money or not. Permanently sticking their 5 faces in millions of minds and still acts to this day. But her alter ego on the battlefield likes to handle lightning bolts that look like straight lines, hell that can be formed into ice beams, and clouds of various darkness that appear as ominous orbs. Her way of wielding weather is all artistry, and yes, it's hypnotic. Can make the battlefield a work of art before it's demolished in might. She's a silver screen A-lister. Galactic Class 1 Woman Army Shiro in Valina. Second of the Silly Killies, Dizzy, 5 years old, of Filipino Caucasian descent. Been happily smiling his entire life since the second he took his first breath. Always with the happiness, even through the trauma of growing up. But it's the happiness that brings him more might. Without it, there wouldn't be a rainbow-wielding power plant of a super being keeping us dizzy and even making radars dizzy. Can turn the battlefield into a canvas for big power plays or big powerful destruction. Either way he chooses, he masterfully handles 7 elements like a professional 50-year-old summoner. Yet, he was only 13 when he could purely perform all elements of the rainbow powers. All elements. Pure fire, light, electricity, wind, water, psychic, and darkness could all be read in training simulators as pure forms. Never lost his might as he aged, even though he took a step back from his entertainment career. His magical might makes it easier to be a child psychologist. He can turn an entire room safely into an exhibit to help children express themselves. The truth sets them free, as they put their entire hand in harmful energy just to be wild. The amount of innocence in it allows for their brains to have no walls of defense. Dizzy takes what he needs from their minds to help them understand the world they live in and the roles they act as children. He is an on-set Hollywood child psychologist, a silver screen A-lister, and a Galactic Class 1-man army hero. Third of the Silly Killies, Awesomeus, 5 years old, of Scottish descent, rarely blessed with the superpower of rule. Well, whatever he says and means will manifest immediately or timely. All depends on his phrasing and thoughts when he activates his powers. Luckily for the world, he never abused his powers because his parents always let him experiment at home, so he doesn't abuse them otherwise. It all started when he made a bowl of cereal float, then everything else in the kitchen that day. Only 5, and already tapped into his powers. Had to keep it a secret, even from his best friends, until they turned 9. When they first started acting, the child psychologist on set was also an acting aerologist. He could feel the power from all 5 of them, but more so Awesomeus. He got the 5 friends together and told them all to hold hands in a circle. He had Awesomeus repeat after him, "May we all manifest what we're meant to be now, from power with love." They all felt a change as if they hit puberty all of a sudden and their ether system pumped the chemical that turns a super being's body into a nuclear power plant. That's when their adventures stopped being so bothersome. It was easier for them to prepare to be teen superheroes. Now Awesomeus may have always been crazy, but when it comes to his superpower, he has never been crazy with them. Actually been a guide with them, and it's the reason why none of them have died so far. He's a silver screen A-lister, mostly comedy, and a Galactic Class 1-man army and sanctuary hero. Fourth of the Silly Killies, Zeroskies, 5 years old, of African descent, has always been trying to do too much and say too much at the same time. Taking trash talk to obsessive pun levels gets him all the laughs, even on the battlefield. Found his voice at a young age and never silenced it for anything. Maybe when he's trying to hide, but otherwise you will hear his grin in everything he says. One of his favorite things to say is, "It's simply a joy to be alive," but an honor to protect the living. So be careful, for the friendships he was blessed with at a tender age eventually made him want to protect everything. Around all of the worlds, he will be the first person on a crew to say, "We can handle it," while everyone is minding their business and doing their homework. Parents had the hardest time settling him down to protect him. They used to scream about it, then laugh about it, because they knew he was going to grow up to be just like his father, power punching like his fists are asteroids that are moving at 300 miles per hour. Will you be careful now? If not, you can feel the thing he's been training to do his whole life, power punching villains into outer space. He's a silver screen A-lister and galactic class one-man army and annihilation hero. Fifth, of the Silly Killies, Newgenesis, 5 years old, of Irish descent, has always been a firm believer of magical might. Knowing his parents are both vegetation wielders had him living a very green life. Tapped into his powers by the time he was 6, and the first tap led him to an origin plant. Was deemed the highest obtainer of the origin plant at that time and has been since that day. All he did was draw something he believed in, and the universe took him to it. After he finished the last line, he took the drawing to a meadow and laid it on grass. The grass immediately absorbed it, and the entire meadow started releasing small green glowing orbs that would disappear after elevating a few feet. Then the pistol he drew of the drawing emerged from the ground slowly. It whispered his name 1,000 times in 5 seconds, every 5 seconds, until he put the stigma in his hands and was teleported to an unknown place. Joro Dundo's giant self was standing over him and looking down at him, said hello to the kid, and put him in the left palm of his hand to raise him up 5 stories to look into his eyes and talk to him. Newgenesis created a plant that was humanoid-based with the ability to ray solar energy like nothing else. At 6 years old, the watch list was already watching him. He's a silver screen A-lister and galactic class one-man army hero. Sixth, of the Silly Killies, Rezendé. She met them when she was 13, and all of them are the same age. Of Dutch descent, acquired the gift of gab from her mother, who has always been her role model, standing at podiums to address the people that humanity is still on the right course. Being a leader was bound to happen. She followed her mother's footsteps to becoming an intergalactic diplomat. Outside of securing a Kate job was only half of her clever busyness. The other half was power training with her father, to the point she gained access to the immortal ghost stone, the kind of rocky material that is invulnerable to any kind of impact, just to make sure his beautiful daughter survives her journey throughout life. Doing this kind of altered her direction in life because she was simply wanting to be a diplomat, but now that she has access to that kind of power, all she needed was another super being. When she met the Silly Killies in a summer camp, she fell in love with the friendship they already had, then fell in love with a young Newgenesis. Then drama stayed in her household because she wanted to be on the battlefield as much as protecting human rights. She's an intergalactic diplomat via Solar System 2 and Galactic Class 1 Woman Army Shiro. Seventh, of the Silly Killies, Big N Bright. He met them when they were 24. Of Armenian descent, has spent his life on quest for power, to be an ultimate hero. Had a whole family to practice superheroism with eventually. Loved every second growing up awaiting what his baptism form would be. Came in the form of a skeleton, and deemed he would be the Day of the Dead for a lifetime. The watch list begrudgingly dealt with their alter ego as soon as he turned 13. They've come accustomed to the House of Rathul, but they did not need one of them becoming a horror icon. When his already muscled out self gained ability to turn into a full skeleton at will, that metal skeleton had bones bulky that fictionally had him looking like a Hulk skeleton. It kept getting worse as he aged. developing means of burying people alive because he could turn his legs into a drill and just pull villains on the ground with him. He became a beacon of heroism, a very hard beacon, but when he met Zeroskies, they became inseparable. The only time this hardened hero is soft is when they aren't on the battlefield. Lovey-dovey, ooey-gooeyness had everyone cringing to the max capacity with their hard eyes. It's been so unnecessary since, but the battlefield always accepts their love of protecting the innocents. He's a high school teacher by day, physical ed mostly, and he's a galactic class one-man army and annihilation hero. Now that all of their introductions are over, 5+2 latent lifers have made a superhero legion unlike others. A superhero legion that deals with a lot of drama for multiple reasons, but they stay sillying it up. Yes, that's a word. Silly-ing the drama to have a more positive reputation that disregards how many villains they kill. They believe that those without love won't be affecting those that have love. May we be the protectors humanity needs. It's in their core, even if Darshé is still loyal to villainy. They are particular with defending her. Rehabilitation may not always work, but Darshé will never say no to her friends or her parents. Yet, all of them have taken lives and will continue to take them to keep the trauma at bay. Just looking at these 7 break bread will show you the good behind those that make the right calls with ending lives. Time cops have the proof, and love showing civilians what the Silly Killies prevent. Down the line, those who pretend to be rehabilitated eventually go back to traumatizing innocents. Millions of lives, much more than they have saved. Their thought process is, for every generation, there will be children that make buns with one another, protecting buns to be as something they feel like they have to do. Rezendé Big N Bright work with children directly. They see themselves in friend groups all the time, and the biggest threat to destroying friend groups are random to procured acts of violence, directly or indirectly. To lose a childhood friend is something none of them want to experience, but experiences it every time Darshé gets imprisoned. The 4 fellas that grew up with her knows what it's like to not have the freedom to hug a friend whenever they want. That sacred pain is dangerous and can direct minds in a path of destruction with no remorse. Because they know what virtue versus hatred means, they do not want to imagine a world without one another. Now imagine losing your best friend and you can't resurrect them. Think about it real hard and let that spike penetrate your heart. Villainy usually threatens to put that in the hearts of all humans. They have seen other heroes cry over a dead body even when resurrection is an option. They need hella moments of silence after that. Hella. Every time they see that happening, they about face as soon as possible because they do not want to feel or think about losing a friend. Their friendship is ultimate, so don't be an aggressor. They have too much fun with aggressors. Too entirely fucking much. They have all the power and aren't afraid or hesitate to use it. They live happily with pressure on a trigger at all times, so they always the first to strike. From the rocky raptor known as Rezendé, to the vegetation ray welder Newgenesis, to the weather of Darshé, to the rainbow effects of Dizzy, to the controlling of outer space of Zeroskies, to the golden rule of Awesomeus, to the metism skeleton of light, via Big and Bright joining them. People like to say this about them. It begins with rock, where seeds grow, cause of purification, followed by a rainbow, and when you're ready to journey the worlds, you gotta do what we say, or meet your death. That is how the superhero guild came to label the Silly Killies.